Hey, Kyle. Can you hear me? I'm on mute there. Can you hear me? Can't hear you yet. I think you're still muted. How about now?
Unmute. Aha. How's that?
Yeah. Sounds good. It's working for me.
I don't need to be in.
It's right here, so you won't be able to be in.
Fabulous.
Oh, maybe not.
I can make pictures. I can make fun of you.
Yeah, that's okay. So, Kyle, I'm here with Ethel. We got a couple other people that were going to join the call, but they said they're running a little bit late. Mike is with Taylor and Louise in our office. They said they're about 10 minutes behind, but I put it on record so that we could kind of record it and then they could tune in afterwards. So I think that'll help them be able to tune in.
Just doing audio, not video?
Well, I have let's see. I have a camera, but I can't get my video to. There we go. Maybe. Yeah, it's not popping up.
Yeah.
I got it. All right. Well, we have.
We see you, Kyle.
We see you, but
Good. Well, that's a little
What's good out there?
After I went and I put on a colored shirt for you guys, and
You can see it.
a sweatshirt for the phone call, but I figured if we were going to go video, I should put on at least somewhat presentable shirt.
Yeah. Yeah. The nice thing about video calls is you don't have hands on. I always find that to be really beneficial.
Yeah, it's always helpful, I think.
So you and I have talked a little bit before, and I kind of gave you the rundown of what we're doing. So would it be helpful for you for me to kind of recap what our intent is this week and what we're going to be doing?
Yeah, and I've been thinking about it a lot too. So why don't you tell me, and then maybe I can even add to it or expand it a little bit.
Great. So what we're doing is we have a new thing that we're trying out. We're piloting on a project on Thursday for the first time. So it's a mixture of essentially three separate things. It's some leadership training. It's some group dynamics. It's inquiry method, and then it's actual project planning a little bit. So we kind of broke it up into three separate sessions. So really we dedicated the morning to kind of like leadership and development training, similar to some of the other stuff that we're already doing within our associates at a corporate level. So we thought we would individualize this down to a smaller team, like a project team. Yep. And then we thought we could help bake in the inquiry method development, and so that's what we're going to try to do this week. And then as we refine it and get better about it, I think it'll improve. And then you're coming down here, I think, in about a month to help us a little bit more with that refining process.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the overall idea.
Beautiful.
And so what I started with, go ahead. What's that?
When does the project start?
So this project is kind of a slow starting project. It's a large park job. So they started with a demolition on site, but only two of the project team is there now. So on Thursday will really be the first time that the project team's, not the first time, but it'll be a kind of a starting point for when the project team will start to assemble. So this team will roll in a whole team over the next probably 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
And so kind of as homework, so I've been through a couple of your classes, and I was scheduled for a mountain retreat at the end of this month, but we pushed it back to April. But what I tried to do was digest as much information from you as I could. So I listened to all of the podcasts. I listened to the audio recordings you have on your website, and I read through a bunch of the blogs. And then I also went back through the notes that I had taken from when you had come down here and done training with us. So I tried to incorporate as much of that as I could into kind of what I took as the essence of the inquiry method, and I put together kind of an outline of that. And I sent that one out yesterday, but basically it's a 9-page outline that just kind of summarizes my notes and my thoughts on it.
Over it, and I have to say I was really impressed, and I'm impressed by your willingness and your interest in doing that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. There's a lot of information there. So maybe you could help me out with perhaps giving me kind of your succinct version. I've heard you say it a few different ways because I've listened to it on a few different mediums. But what is inquiry method to you, and how does that function within a project team? Is probably the applicable portion of what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. So also, I think it would be great, since you're so interested, we should get you the online levels of participation course.
Yeah, I sent in there was a thing that you could fill out to send in for more information to sign up for one of those courses, and I sent it in, and it said we'll get with you.
Okay.
I didn't hear back on that.
Oh, how long has it been?
I think it was maybe early last week when I did that.
Okay,
well, not that long.
I'll ask somebody about that. I'm writing it down. Okay. Yeah, so this is a great question. And within the levels of participation, we learned that at each level of participation that we join in. Are you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, there's just some. It says loading on the website. Anyway, at least each level of participation, the way we play with others changes. At the first level, I come in, I'm saying, I need to get my needs met here. And at the second level, we say, well, this has got to be fair. We got to make this fair. At the next level, we go, I want to do this. This is my idea. We should do it my way. But when we're really playing well with others, we're at level 4, and that is, I call want for us, or what is the thing that we're all striving for together. And so in a project like this, obviously, or a business, it's to be successful or to finish the project and have happy clients and all that stuff. But even more profoundly is how we're going to play together. And so inquiry method is a system for speaking to how we're going to play well with others and how we're going to play together and how we're going to treat each other. Inquiry management is this idea that instead of being a boss to someone, whereas I am telling them what they need to do so that I can be successful, is that as a leader to somebody or as a mentor to somebody else, I'm supporting them at being successful in the work, in their life, in all these things. So there's a change in view, whereas if you're my boss or my direct report, is that you present to me in a way that I feel supported, that you set up a context so that I feel supported and that you're here to help me be successful rather than to criticize me, chastise me, call me out, make me wrong, those kind of things. So one level of inquiry management is how do I set up that relationship with one of the people that report to me in a way that they feel that I'm really there to support and help them. And then, so that's inquiry management. Inquiry leadership is actually not only my willingness to mentor somebody, but we could say also my willingness to be mentored. And what I mean by that is committing to my own development, my willingness to be humble enough to be asking for help and receiving the help. And since I've realized this, and actually, Ethel, you remember that, when we came to that realization, is that it's just as important as a leader to be humble enough to be a learner as it is to have somebody who's reporting to you that's a learner. Does that make sense?
Correct. Totally. And I'm glad you're kind of highlighting that distinction. One of the things that, and again, I know you and Matt have had several conversations over the course of time. I'm sitting here intentionally being a little devil's advocate in my mind because I'm putting myself as a brand new person to the KL team. So I'm the brand new person to the KL team and to a new team environment, project team environment. So I think that can become kind of the check pulse, if you would, for whether or not our message is resonating from the one that understands it fairly well to the one that is brand new, because everybody has got to kind of have a foundational understanding, and then that's how you get to then adoption and application. So one of the things, and that you may have thought through, in setting the stage when we get to this part, because this is a new initiative that we're kicking off with one project team that will be replicated ideally as project teams are formed or rather assigned. Yes. And, the hopes is that, this becomes just second nature almost. When you assign that team, we know that we've got to get this kind of training in. It may not fit every single situation. Some happen at a shorter clip as far as lead time than others. But I think just to set that stage, either the front end or before we get into the IM, of why this is even important. Sometimes the why has to be spelled out to get to the what. I really won't pay attention to your what until I know why. So if I know that the why is, this is going to we're doing this so that you will be the most effective, efficient, well-oiled, however you want to word that. But I didn't want to gloss over that. Just setting the stage sounds simple, but if you miss that step, we could lose them and go through a whole hour. Okay?
Great. No, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say there's a lot to that because going into it, even setting this up, and maybe this will completely change after we do this. Once we'll figure out that we need to do this differently, or we need to make this something that's spread out over 3 meetings. One of them for this, one of them for that, one of them for this, that kind of thing. But there's definitely a lot of skepticism from people going in saying, not just the inquiry method portion of it, but this whole meeting, we're going to spend a whole day. Really, are we going to spend a whole day? And that's a waste of a day. Yeah. So that's the initial feedback, and it's
to go to what we did the other day when we talked about who are the stakeholders, what are their needs, and how do we fulfill them. That was with training and development. Well, this is development, right? So if you can set the stage using that, say you are the stakeholder, here's what your need is, or have them explain that, and then understand how this fulfills that need. Maybe that helps.
By the way, Kyle, Tom came into the room after we did the initial introduction. Tom's one of the vice presidents here. Has been here for how long?
A year plus?
A little over a year, but he's never been through the IM training at all. So for him, this is pretty new. So, but
Mike and I are going to join.
Okay. So Mike and Taylor are also going to join us in a second here.
Great.
So
nice to meet you, Tom.
Yeah, nice to meet you. I was party to your thing last year in 2017, where there was a big crowd of folks.
Right, that's true.
Sorry.
I was a guy with a shaved head and the beard that looked just like you on the other side of the room. Hey.
Good. Yeah.
I just
Hey, Kyle.
Hey. For some reason my picture got so small I can hardly see myself. But it is helpful to remember that you're looking at me. Yeah. Let me just see if I can recapture what I was going to say. So this is fundamental to it's good, Ethel, because it's so fundamental to inquiry management. for everybody's individual success. And then we're also setting up the context, if we have a bunch of successful individuals, just as if we took a football team or something, that if we made everybody individually at the top of their game, that collectively, if we have the same idea about where we're going, is that we're going to be more effective. So it's a double whammy, and really it's the intention of Kaufman Lynn is to support everybody in being as effective as they possibly can be, not only for the company, but for the individual's personal success and fulfillment.
Correct.
So, we're talking about leading in. We've got kind of an idea of setting the stage. I might be mixing up terms. So one of the terms is kind of levels of altitude, and then the other one, which you just talked about, which was we were talking about the need, exchange, and contribution, and those things. Would you differentiate those from levels of altitude?
Altitude levels of participation are the same thing. Levels of participation is a subnote under altitude. Altitude has to do with the level of consciousness with which I'm approaching a situation. A problem can't be solved at the level of consciousness that's created it. So that's the broadest term, is levels of consciousness. Altitude is what level of consciousness am I operating from. Levels of participation is when I drew those circles and somebody comes in, that talks about how do I participate at different altitudes. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, I think I listed it out that way and kind of understood it that way. So
good.
I had altitude as the heading, and then levels of participation is below, and then I've got those little circles recreated that you went through,
Great.
Which I will use as a diagram in what we're going through. So I think I've got that pretty well done.
Okay, great.
So Matt, what's the window of time assigned for this in that session?
So we have basically the afternoon set aside for the bulk of the afternoon. So the morning.
3 hours, 4 hours?
More like probably about 2 hours set aside for inquiry. So the idea on that was twofold. So one was to talk about a general overview of the inquiry method, and then the second portion of it is to really dive into what inquiry management looks like as it's. Did I lose you, Kyle? Just left the meeting. All right. Taylor, can you hear us? He's muted. Oh, technology. Oh, that's true. Right. Okay. Taylor, you still here, but we lost Kyle. We were doing good for a while. Well,
Why don't we just put them on a speakerphone and skip all the heavy technology? Can we do that, or
We-
does that kill your meeting?
well, the reason I was doing it on this and it was working fine was so that I could record it and come back to it and not have to type notes as we're going through and actually just focus on what he was saying.
Got it.
It was working great. I think hopefully he can call back in. There he is. Yeah, wanted to really be able to focus and talk to him rather than try to.
Okay. And the meeting that you guys were referring to, when is that meeting?
Thursday is our first pilot. Then our goal is, so we're going to do that. Are you back?
Yes. Somehow I got bumped off.
Yeah, so I was just recapping for Mike. So our initial meeting is Thursday. We're going to refine it, analyze it. Then Kyle comes in about a month, a little under a month, and then we really dive deep, I think, more into how we make this a strategic endeavor, and is this the right way, or are there other ways? Is this part of what we do? Those kind of things. So Kyle, what I was saying right before you dropped off was, so I've got that kind of high level stuff, and I've got some depth into what I want to go through on that. So the second half of it that I'd like to get some feedback from you on, if that's okay, is
Sure.
I'd like to try to. I've always found really good value when you come down and do the sessions on the one-on-one portions that we do with the observer, and then the mentor and the mentee.
Yep.
And I got some ideas of what that structure would look like and what kind of topics we would cover. But
Great.
Given what you know, what would your thoughts be on lead into that, and then what kind of things would you think would be of value to go through in a group? Particularly, we're talking about the dynamics of how that group's going to be successful and that kind of stuff.
You know, I would want to hear from everybody and have what happens in the trios is that we give everybody gets an opportunity to speak. So everybody gets heard from, and then we bring it into the large group so that at least the highest points can be transferred to the group. So the two questions or three questions, I would do risks. What are the risks here? What are the challenges? And what are the opportunities?
Mm-hmm. So one of the ones that I specifically recall from when you came down before was that I thought was really impactful was you had asked us to say, what would it mean for Kaufman to be successful in our eyes, and how would we measure that in 2 years from now? And you asked us to list out about 5 or 7 things. So one of the thoughts I had was, if you look at this team, and this project we're talking about is an 18-month project, so they're going to be there a little while. Right. One of the thoughts I had was, what would it mean for the team to be successful, this project to be successful? How would we measure those things at the end? What are your thoughts on that?
That's great. That's exactly what I mean by opportunities. It's perfect. Very good. What would success look like? What would success look like? That's great.
What about leading into it? What would your approach be as we transition from big picture talking about inquiry method into inquiry management? I've got some of the stuff that we have in the handbook that we give out on some of the topics that you might want to cover in a one-on-one discussion, but what kind of intro would you typically do for something like this to build the stage for what it looks like?
Yeah. Let me just feel it for just a second. The first hit I get is to recognize that we are a collective. We're only as good as we are together. And say, I would say, at this point, we've kind of talked about some of the skills and, that we want to use, but I think even more important is to get, your vision, your feedback, and your input. And I would say there's 3 things that we'd like to hear about. We'd like to all understand, have this same or equivalent understanding what success would mean. We would all like to have an understanding and a list of all the challenges we might face, both practically and interpersonally. And we'd all like to have some ideas about how we're going to address those challenges when they occur. And what that's going to do is put us all on the same page. It's just, and I think this metaphor of a football team would be great. There's no football team that just has the Super Bowl coming up, and what they do is they just say, hey, I'll meet you on the field. No, we get together, we talk about what our intent is, what our strategy is, and I think that's a really good way of explaining to everybody what the why is the why is there's nobody that goes out to be successful at something, especially in a challenging environment where we're going to be dealing with and interacting with other people, everybody doesn't get on the same page to be successful. So why would we do that in construction if we think somebody would be an idiot to do that in football or some other collective activity? So this is the pre-game, briefing, the pre-game where we get pumped up, where we get ready to go kick some ass, and actually we should probably do another one at halftime, and reassess where we are. But we just wouldn't expect anybody to go out there and be successful together without doing this. Does that sound right?
And it kind of lines up what we talked about, actually. That's really the intro for the entire session, not just the inquiry management. That's why we're doing this and trying to talk about game planning, the whole deal. And yeah, we did talk about, we kind of set up saying, we need a halftime comeback to this. We need something to say, all right, how are we tracking along? Do we need to start over? Do we need a new game plan? Yeah. So I think that's good.
That's right. So, in this final part that we're talking about, basically it's like this isn't a dictatorship. We're not just telling you what to do. We want to hear from everybody. This is only going to work if there's two-way communication. If you're out there on the field and all of a sudden you notice that, that there's a weakness in our defense, you don't just stay shut up about it. We want to hear about it, right? So, what we want to hear from everybody, what their concerns are, and how everybody thinks we should best play together and come to an agreement so that everybody's on the same page. If you don't speak up, if we don't talk together, we don't know that we have everybody's agreement.
Setting what we just talked about there as it relates to what does success mean to everybody is a huge piece of getting everybody on the same page. So project engineer coming in to the job is going to have a much different perspective on the success of the project than the project exec is going to have. Project exec may have this list of, profitability, no claims, no contract relationships, those kind of things. A project engineer is looking at it like, at the end of this job, I want to be a PM. That would be successful for me.
Yeah.
But having that comprehensive list and everybody acknowledging it, identifying the things that are germane to the project or the opportunity that we're going to do, we can get everybody in the beginning on the same page as to what success looks like. It'll be a huge move forward.
To tie that in for my last year, a big part of the team was what are the owner's expectations?
Yeah.
We don't do a great job of sitting down with the owner before the job and saying, what is your expectations of the project, Mr. Owner? Going over that. Being part of the point here as well.
And I would throw in another aspect of success that might even be easier to understand, would just say, when we're in construction and like at Florida, when we go by that stadium, I go, wow, that was cool to build that or whatever. It's like, I want to be able to drive. This job is going to be here probably for the rest of my life. And I want to be able to, every time I drive by it or think about it, say, not only am I proud of what we did, but I had a great time and felt great about how we did it.
Mm-hmm. You bet.
And then I would say, what would we have to do together to think that's the best job I ever built, or that was the best team I ever played with?
Yes, that's interesting you mentioned that. My introduction to the whole day that was exactly my question. So my icebreaker question for the team when we start off the day is, what's the best project you ever worked on, and what was your favorite team you ever worked with, and what made it special?
That's so great, Matt. I just keep being impressed by how you're approaching this. And I see your commitment and tenacity and intention. I really honor it. It's just really great.
Thanks. So another thought I had was, you mentioned the football team, and I like the analogy, and what Mike was talking about. There was a book I was reading recently where they were saying that everybody on the football team has a common goal. So the team itself has the goal of winning the Super Bowl, right? But the head coach has the goal of, say his is winning the Super Bowl. So the offensive coordinator doesn't have the goal of winning the Super Bowl. His goal is to, throw for 300 yards a game and rush for 150 yards a game. And the wide receiver's goal is to catch 100 yards a game and, those things. So I think that ties a lot into what we're going to talk about too, with how do we set up goals, not only that make sense with each other, but that we're all aware of, so that we're saying, this is my goal, you're buying into it, right?
I might say it a little, I'd like to say that a little differently. And this is my suggestion about it. I would say that we all have the same goal or objective, is to be able to look back at this as a great job that was profitable for Kaufman Lynn and a big stepping stone in my career. We all have the same goal. We each have different contributions or objectives. But if we start to say, my goal is just this, we want everybody to understand that everybody's 100% responsible for the success of the organization. And if we see, we're not just putting blinders on and not just saying, well, I did my job. We're saying we want everybody looking out for the whole project all the time. Is that a helpful distinction?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kai, I was going to mention that, it's the interdependency of each team member's goals and objectives is what ties it back to the company. So every time we go from a macro to a micro, that micro still has to tie back to the macro goal. So that's well said. It is the company's goal. So I may have what success looks in my little world, but it is directly connected to Matt and directly connected to Tom. So that interdependency also makes them feel linked. I can't say, well, I don't care. That's your job, not mine. Right? I want to help you. So even at a peer-to-peer, from an inquiry management, the manager is saying, how can I help you? But even at a peer-to-peer, there's some benefit to the interdependency of the greater goal.
Yeah, and I would say that it's better to put it in terms of having a project that I just felt great being a part of and that furthered my career, rather than saying we're doing it for the company or for Matt or for Mike or something. So, that's why we want to create this larger ideal that says, wow, I want, like we're starting out, what's the best job I ever worked on? What was great about that? It was how we communicated and talked and how we did it together. It's going to be like that every time. So that my benefit is being part of a team that is really enjoying being successful together.
Yeah.
Oh, and you better make a profit too.
Absolutely. But better, the profit is going to be a natural outcome of playing well.
For sure. That's the essence of the whole, of why we brought IM in.
That's right.
And it's the essence, it's the belief of that.
The profitability is a measure, and it's really the company's job is to set a context for profitability, and then if everybody does their part well, the profit should come automatically. So I would say it's, and this is a little twisted and may create objection, but I would say if I, as a supervisor, and just take this with a grain of salt, I'm not responsible for the profitability. I'm just responsible for doing my job really well and playing well with others. Does that make sense?
So, Matt, are you going to ask in there basically a little inquiry of each team member, what is your need? What do you need to be successful on the project? If you can say, here's the project goals, what do you need? Just like the football analogy, you say, we want to win the Super Bowl, Mr. Quarterback, what do you need? Well, I need receivers, I need this, I need that. So are you going to go through the team members and say, what are your needs? And how do we as a team fulfill them? If the project engineer says, I never looked at elevator shop drawings, I need somebody to show me how to do that. Well, okay, we identify a need, we can help them out, then we're successful, right? Mm-hmm. So that part of the plan is kind of ask what the team members' needs are to help the rest of the team kind of get together as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's useful for sure. I think we'll definitely want to add that.
Because I don't think we want to make the assumption that everybody is capable of doing all of it, right? Or we can
Getting the project engineer to open his kimono or her kimono, listing what they need help in before you start the job, wouldn't that be great?
And be able to own it, right? Yeah, I got that. I don't know.
Wouldn't that be great?
So that could be that could even be good homework, is to have everybody come with a list of what do they need from the company and what do they need from each other to be successful in their role.
And maybe they leave with that homework now, and they say, all right, your goal is when you leave here, we're going to talk about what a need is and what does it mean to have a need and what does that look like? And then we say, all right, your goal over the next week is you're going to take and you're going to define what your need is, and then you're going to do a one-on-one with somebody in the next week and talk about that need and how the team can solve those needs, or maybe it becomes part of the team meeting the next week.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
I mean, at least for this one, it's on Thursday, and they've already done a decent amount of homework leading up to it. So
great. We'll send them home. I think that's great. So when you're doing homework like that, when you're doing homework like that to send them home with, it's wonderful to do a little model in front of everybody so that they can see how one might do it. So Matt, if you were to do it for you, and then show everybody, I want to show you what it's like. So I went through what my needs are in the project to be successful, and just to give you a model for how somebody might do it.
Yeah, I think that'd be really good. So anything you can think of that I'm missing, or that would be really, in your opinion, really valuable to add in that you could think of, Kyle?
Let me just feel it for a second. I just think, and this is just, it's the sense of it, and I just can't emphasize this enough, as a leader, Matt, is that your interest is everybody that reports to you, and as a member of this team, feeling great about what we're doing and how we're doing it. And that you really want to have communication happen so that we can all really enjoy this process and be successful. And if you're successful individually, I know I'm going to be successful. And if I'm successful, I know the company is going to be successful. And to just, if they can feel that from you is your earnest desire to help them be successful, I think that's just going to be great. And then when you do what I need is, to help you be successful, I need you to be transparent with me. I need you to tell me what's really going on.
Yeah.
And so I really fit that. I think that fits in with you talking about what you need, and just, that's why I'm having us talking together. That's why I'm setting up these things, is so that we can kill it.
Yeah, I think that's certainly my biggest need going in. I mean, that would have been what I would have said as well, is my need.
Great.
Yeah. So I think we've got a pretty good handle on at least our first trip into it. We'll have some feedback and some growing pains, I'm sure. And I'm sure I'll fall in the trap of lecturing more than inquiring at times.
In the first, is it a rollout of it? Is on Thursday?
Yeah, we're calling it a pilot, really, a beta test. And then what our plan is to survey that. So Chris will be there. If Tom can make it, Tom will be there to survey the process, and then we refine that and figure out, is this the best way, or is this something that we can modify? And really the big question for us is, between this and the current project startup that we do, what do we do? Do we do them both? Do we do one? Do we mix them together? What has value in each section? I think we'll find out some of that.
Well, you previously set a full agenda.
Correct.
So you're looking to adjust that agenda based on results of this meeting and looking at it in relation to the previous startup?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I really wish I could be at that first meeting. It would be really good, but
You should ask the lunch for this component.
Matt, one of the things I'd ask you to do is just really, as you're going through that, pay attention, so that before I come down, as you and I can talk about, what you're noticing as the greatest need, so we can really fine tune the day I spend to be most effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe somewhat, Kyle's time here may be somewhat on the program itself, and it may be, who knows, maybe a majority of it, how to teach the program, or, you know, how best to communicate it,
Yeah.
you know, for real results.
No, it's a great point, because going forward, I'm not going to be at every one of these things
Right.
that we do. So some of this is creating a program, and then, yeah, you're right. Some of what Kyle's going to do is train the rest of us on, you know, how do we roll this program out in depth when it's not just one person who spent 30 hours listening to Kyle's podcasts and audios and, you know, blogs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And here's the thing about this, and we got to communicate this clearly. This isn't a master's level study assignment to get good at this. This is totally intuitive, totally counterintuitive to what we've experienced rolling up the ladder at this company and certainly at other companies. Once you get it, once you see the value of it and embody the value of it, there'll be distractions that take you off course like they do for me. But once you embody it, teaching it is like speaking English. It's not hard to do it.
No, it's such a simple thing. It's not easy to do, but it's such a simple thing.
Yeah, and Kyle, my thoughts on it from just the enterprise-wide, you know, when you and I were talking about cascading some of this out, once I saw what he was doing, I said, let's do this. We don't need multiple rollouts and multiple programs. This was, I felt, baked enough from a pilot standpoint. So when you and I talk again, we still have a different track and mission, but this was going to be a piece of it. But I'm comfortable that let's let this piece that's already taken some shape, and then we'll see how that blends into, because it's just one item.
Yeah,
I don't want you to think we're a different program. I like what you've done as far as kind of framing it, and one of the big pieces was kind of train the trainer, so that this can have sustainability, and it doesn't just be, hey, if Matt can't train it, it doesn't get done.
Or evolve into something.
Exactly.
Becomes evil.
Yeah.
Kind of. Any other thoughts from you guys?
Are you going to do that simulating piece? The one-on-one with the
Yeah, that's just right here.
Were you asking him how to do it in that?
No, I was asking him, we went through, I was asking him what kind of things would he talk about in that, and what would be the, he mentioned, you know, risks and opportunities and challenges, and then we talked about the, you know, what would it mean for the team to be successful. Those are the kind of things that I would pose to the team and say, you know, spend 10 minutes thinking about this and
you break them into threes.
Then you break them into threes, and you have a one-on-one with an observer, then you rotate. So that'll take some time. If they spend 10 minutes writing it, they spend 10 minutes talking 3 times, that's 40 minutes worth of time just in them. But I found that to be, the times we've done it, I found that to be so helpful, just in getting to know people. Even
How many people would begin?
in the session, it's the whole thing itself, that's a good question. It depends on who shows up.
So if you do one-on-one. And this is for Blueston?
This is for Blueston. So theoretically, there's going to be, the Blueston team has 4 guys on site plus me, plus Garrett, plus Chris, plus you, plus Taylor, plus Louise. It would be 10 people. I suspect some of those will drop off. So
All this is after. Why would we allow anybody to drop off? It's major.
Well, he's really the one that I think might not, depending on what he can do, if he can make it to this.
This is in the afternoon. This part's in the afternoon.
Correct.
So we have scheduled the M2 recap in the morning.
So starting noon morning.
This will start, I have a schedule. I'll pull up the schedule in a second.
Okay. You got to get a number right for Wednesday. It's Friday, but it's Ron and Sam.
Yeah, that one's pretty high priority.
Yeah, that's why I'm my job.
Yeah. The future of the South Florida office.
We can't really hear you guys over there. Can you hear us?
No, we're not saying anything really important right now, so you're not missing anything.
Is there anything else you guys need from me?
Anything else?
I need to.
No, I don't think so. I appreciate your time. I know we ran over a little bit on your timeline.
It's great. I feel so inspired by what you're doing, Matt, and I just honor it and appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Kyle. We'll give you some feedback after it happens, and then we'll see you in about a month, and then I think I'll be seeing you sometime in April in Raleigh.
Great. Well, let's make sure we schedule a call sometime after you do this and before I come down for sure.
Yeah, that'd be good. Before my brain pushes everything out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, you ought to schedule that now, for sure.
Yeah, next week.
And Kyle, I'm back on target time-wise,
Okay.
so.
Great. So I'll talk to you in about 15 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. All right,
Okay.
great to talk to you all. Nice to see you, Ethel. Well, I wish I'd seen all of you, but anyway, nice to talk to you all of you.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Kyle.
All right.
Hey, everybody.
Mike?